Hello, this is astrologer coach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming full moon in 2.5 degrees of Scorpio, which will be exact on April 22nd at 1:24 a.m. East Coast time in the US, which is also New York time. Very nice and early in the morning. Or on April 21st at 10:24 p.m., which is the West Coast in the US and also LA time. So for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be looking for balance and to integrate two very different energies with each other to bring something into alignment. And the balance in question is between our physical attachments and connections, which are symbolized by Taurus, and our emotional attachment and connections, which are symbolized by Scorpio. Now, it's important to realize that Scorpio's deep, authentic connection to ourselves and other people are really essential to our existence, and they really play a crucial role in defining and understanding what we value most, which is connected to Taurus. So Taurus and Scorpio really need each other. They're always opposite signs that are opposite each other. They need each other to really create a healthier approach to life. So it's about integrating oppositions, right? When you have an opposition in your own birth chart, it's about integrating the two planets and the two signs that are connected to this opposition. Now, in this particular full moon, it's about the Scorpio energy and the Taurus energy. So it's very much about letting go of fears and breaking through to the next level of our evolution. It really invites us, this full moon invites us to illuminate and integrate what has been hidden in the shadows, what has been sort of like hidden underneath the surface, things that we have suppressed, things that we have rejected about ourselves, things that we don't like about ourselves as much. These are the things that we need to bring back up to the surface. We need to look at them, we need to acknowledge them, and we need to integrate them. And the real central question for this particular full moon is, what do we really want? And here we need to take a look at the Taurus and the Scorpio energy. Taurus seeks comfort and material stability. It's about having a healthy relationship with ourselves, with the planet, with the physical plane in general. So it also includes our own physical body, for example, right? And it's also concerned with creating healthy self-esteem. Taurus is very much about connecting to our self-worth. It's not just about what we value outside of ourselves, it's also how much we value ourselves, right? And Scorpio, on the other end, craves transformation. It wants us to be in touch with our deepest desires, what we really feel truly passionate about. But it also wants us to know our worst fears. Because Scorpio understands that when we understand our fears, when we understand our darkness, our own darkness, that's when we're able to feel fully empowered. Because by bringing light and consciousness and acknowledgement to these aspects of ourselves, we're able to embrace them and we're able to feel fully empowered. And that is really what Scorpio craves in the end, right? And so it's really essential to bring our conscious awareness to places in ourselves where we've put up walls, where we've tried to protect ourselves, where we've sort of like tried to empower ourselves in a sense by putting up walls, right? And so addressing past trauma and feelings of disempowerment is really very important, because it's by addressing these things we can actually see through the protective mechanism that's in place, these walls that are in place that falsely empower us, or that falsely sort of like protect us from future trauma or future disempowerment. Because the truth is, what really does empower us and what really does help us with trauma and disempowerment is connecting to our own inner strength. And our own inner strength comes from really knowing and understanding how powerful we are. And the power that we have lies in being a being of love, fully capable of having an open heart and being in our full awareness of self all the time. And that is what gives us strength, and that is what helps us with anything that comes our way, whether that's trauma or disempowerment that we're experiencing. That will help us connect to our inner strength. And so by addressing past traumas and disempowerments, we can really address these walls that we've put up for ourselves, and we can allow ourselves to return to trust ourselves more, to trust others more, to trust life in general. And so we really need to acknowledge our fears. We need to acknowledge, what we've built, these walls that we've built all around us. And by truly acknowledging that, we can then transform into the powerful being of love and inner strength that we are, that is always there, that is always underneath all of that. It's just that the walls that we put in place, they don't just protect us from future trauma and disempowerment, they also protect us from really experiencing, connecting fully to that beautiful being that we are. Right? So Scorpio really wants us to go beyond the surface to our deepest motivations, the deepest motivations that we have about life. It wants us to understand what propels us forward, what compels us in life, the sense of attraction that we have towards things, the sense of repulsion that we have against something, So the question that we can ask ourselves here is, what really turns us on about life? Because Scorpio is about passion. It's about really seeing what it really gets you excited on an emotional level about life. And then the opposite side of that, which is also connected to Scorpio, is what scares us to death, which is also a really important question to ask. What is really scary to us in life? What are the things that are really holding us back? Because by addressing the fears that we have, we can then fully more step into what we feel fully passionate about. Without addressing the fears, we're not going to be able to step into our passion, right? So I'm going to be asking a lot of questions like that throughout this video, like I always do. So if you want to receive these questions via email, then feel free to email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write full moon questions into the subject line, and then my assistant will email you all the questions from this video so that you can, sit with these questions for the next 2 weeks. You can meditate on them. You can just kind of like have them in the back of your mind and keep reminding yourself of these questions as you go through these next 2 weeks. It's going to be very helpful. Now, another part of the video that I want to talk about is some of the planets that are connected to the full moon in this full moon chart. And one of the planets is Venus, because Venus rules Taurus. And Venus is adding her influence as she joins Uranus in Aries. And so this combination, this Venus-Uranus combination in Aries, really invites us to find a renewed connection to our hearts, to keep our hearts open, to be courageous, to know that what we do is what creates our reality, and to be brave in the world and to allow ourselves to see that we are the creators, that our heart guides us, that our heart is the thing that really helps us fulfill on our vision for life that we have for ourselves. And so very important with this Venus-Uranus connection is to understand that there is a huge desire for us at this time for freedom, for novelty, for new involvements with either like-minded people or with causes that we resonate with. Right? So really be in the world and go after things that we feel really good about in terms of something that really creates more freedom in our lives, and also maybe for other people, right? Now, Venus and Uranus are also squaring Pluto at the time of the full moon. And Pluto is in Capricorn right now. So we're really being invited, on the one hand, to honor our own values and individual needs, which would be Venus and Uranus in Aries, right? But then also to think about the long-term consequences of our actions and interactions. And that is more about Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto in Capricorn says, not so fast. Let's take a look at what we're really doing out there in the world. What's the long-term game plan, right? Whereas Venus and Uranus, they're in Aries, so it's a little bit more impulsive, and we want to just kind of act and react towards things, right? So we need to kind of find a way to honor both of these energies. So some questions that you can ask yourself with this square is, how can we grow and evolve in our relationships, right? And is there a relationship that we need to grow or evolve out of? Anything that's not authentic anymore, anything that doesn't resonate anymore with who we are now, right? And are we being true to ourselves? Are we being true to our individuality? Are we being true to who we are in the world, or who we want to be seen as in the world, right? And what does it take to have a relationship based on trust, love, and genuine desire for intimacy? And this is, I think, a really important question to be with for the next 2 weeks, especially if you're single or if you're currently in a relationship where you don't have these things, right? So what does it really take to have a relationship based on trust, love, and genuine desire for intimacy, where you feel a real connection, where you feel real passion with another person, that's honest, that's truthful, where you can really trust each other, where you really feel a deep connection like that. Now, the other part of this full moon is Mars. Mars, the planet Mars, is the traditional ruler of Scorpio. And right now it's stationing. It went retrograde a couple of days ago, and it's stationing in Sagittarius at the time of the full moon. And so we feel this energy very strongly in the sky. Whenever a planet stations, its energy becomes exalted, right? So we are feeling this more on an internal level because it's already gotten retrograde. So we're really being asked here to tap into ourselves internally and ask ourselves to redefine our beliefs that we have around the masculine energies within us. Find new ways for doing and pursuing things. Mars represents our active energy, what we feel we want to go after. So for those of us who have a very strong masculine or a very strong Mars in your birth chart, right? This is going to be very important to really tap into, see how can you find new ways of how you do and pursue things, right? Now, Mars and Saturn are both currently in Sagittarius, and they're both making a square to Jupiter in Virgo and Neptune in Pisces. And so this creates a T-square, with Mars and Saturn being on the top of the T-square, which is called the focal point. And so I've talked about this a little bit in past videos, with Saturn being the focal point, but now Mars is there as well. And so this becomes even stronger now for us. And so we're going to probably be feeling this until mid-May. And so we're being really asked here to ask ourselves, what are some outdated beliefs that we keep holding on to, or outdated biases that we have that stem from past experiences? Everything is changing so fast these days. We're constantly changing too ourselves. Everything around us is changing. So we can really no longer afford to keep holding on to old ways of thinking and connecting to the world and how we perceive the world in this old way, right? So, and thinking is really the key here, because thinking is what creates our reality. Thinking, our thoughts, that's the first thing that's in place, is our thoughts. And then our thoughts are connected to our feelings, because feelings arise from our thinking. And then from our feelings arises the need to take action, right? So, and then the actions create our reality. So again, thoughts create our reality, right? So we have to really be very conscious of how we're thinking and what we're thinking about, and if we're thinking in old ways that we've been conditioned into, but if we're holding on to that type of thinking, right? So it's really essential to remain curious about life, to remain open, keep an open mind, rather than making assumptions based on past experiences. We're being encouraged to speak and act responsibly from an open mind, right? And so we're really reminded that communication, which is part of our thinking too, right? Because thinking is our inner dialogue, but it's also what we speak out loud, right? So it's a two-way street, right? Communication is always a two-way street, whether that's our inner dialogue with ourselves or our outer dialogue that we have with somebody else. It's very important to understand that we need to listen as well as speak up, right? So the thinking and the listening and the speaking up and the listening is very important. So all of this is even more emphasized because Mercury in Taurus at the time of the full moon is slowing down, is stationing, right? When the full moon happens, it's starting to slow down. And so for the next 2 weeks, as Mercury is slowing down more and more, preparing to come to a halt, this energy is going to be very exalted, and Mercury is about communication. So whether that's your inner dialogue or whether that's what you say to other people, it's very important to understand, are you the type of person who listens and doesn't speak up for themselves, or are you the type of person who speaks up for themselves but doesn't listen as well? So find a way to really connect to both of those places within you, the listening and the speaking up. And the last planet I want to talk about with this full moon is Pluto, and Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio, so very, very important in this full moon chart. And Pluto is also stationing at the time of the full moon. So as you can see, there's a lot of stations. Mars, Mercury, and Pluto are all stationing at the time of the full moon. They're all exalted at the time of the full moon. And Pluto, just like Mars, is also retrograde already. It went retrograde a couple of days before the full moon became exact. And so here we're being asked to really empower ourselves from within and to really embrace all of our different natures, right? Because we don't operate always from the same place. We have days, we're emotional beings, right? We have days where we're feeling really high in vibration, and we have days where we feel really low in vibration. So to really embrace all of these different parts of ourselves, the high, the low, the intuitive, the instinctive, the lover, the survivor. There's all these different archetypes that we embody, the father, the mother, the son, the daughter. There's all these places in us, and we need to embrace all of them so that we can feel fully empowered, because empowerment comes from wholeness. When you feel whole as a person, that's when you feel fully empowered. And Scorpio very much wants to feel empowered, right? That's the essence of Scorpio, is wanting to connect deeply to all of who you are, to all of your feeling body in a very deep way. Passion, right? Scorpio is about passion. So things you can ask yourself in this next 2 weeks in connection to that Pluto placement, where are you being authentic in your life? Especially when you look at your life and you look at your long-term plans, right? Like, how authentic are you really? How are your long-term plans, or what you're building in the world currently? How is that in alignment with your passion? Because passion ultimately is the deepest of desires and the deepest of our emotional authenticity that we can experience, right? And so how authentic are you being in the world with yourself, right? And then another question you can ask yourself, are we consistently empowering ourselves and others? When you are, in terms of what you're doing in the world, in terms of what you're building in the world, are you empowering yourself and other people? Is that what you're doing? And how are you doing at letting go of behaviors and impulses that arise from trauma or a sense of threat? And this is very important. Pluto wants us to really take a look at the dark side of things as well, the shadow side of things. And that has to do with behaviors and impulses that are connected to past traumas or to our fears, right? Things that we're afraid of. And fear comes from past trauma usually, because when you are born as a baby, you're not afraid. You don't come out of the womb being afraid. So fear comes from trauma. It comes from feeling disempowered. It comes from feeling helpless or hopeless about certain things, right? Because of things that you have experienced in life. So we need to take a look at these things because those really inform who we are in the world. It's very important. Now, Pluto in Capricorn is also part of a grand trine with Jupiter in Virgo and Mercury in Taurus at the time of the full moon. So this grand trine, which is a really beautiful grand trine in the earth signs, is making it much easier for us to recognize what we value most and how to manifest those things long term in the real world, in the physical world. And Jupiter in Virgo wants us to simplify, wants us to find the simplest way, the simplest path to get there, right? And so things that you can ask yourself with this grand trine for the next 2 weeks, what feels most satisfying to me personally? What do I feel really connected with? In the physical world? And what are my priorities and bottom lines when it comes to accomplishing things, when it comes to manifesting things? What are my priorities and bottom lines? And what is the simplest path that manifests all of them long term? So when it comes to your priorities and bottom lines, what is the simplest path that you can take so you can really manifest all those things long term? Right? So again, sit with these questions. You don't have to answer them right away, right? So to sum it all up, for this full moon really invites us to stay in touch with our feelings and deepen our relationship with our unconscious mind and hidden aspects, things that we have rejected or that we have repressed within ourselves. And to really allow ourselves to open up to the love that we already are. Because essentially everybody, we all as human beings, we are beings of love. That is always underneath all of the other stuff. It doesn't matter how much trauma you've experienced in your life, how much pain and hurt you've experienced, and how much you're trying to protect yourself and how fearful you are. Underneath all of that is a being of love. And so in order for us to uncover that being, the real you that's been there before all the trauma and hurt, that has been there all the time, silently in the background, in order for us to discover that, we have to address our traumas and fears, right? So be courageous, really connect to your thinking, connect to your feelings, connect to your physical experiences. And most of all, be kind to yourself. Because without being kind to yourself, without compassion towards who you are, towards all the traumas and pains that you have been through and experienced, and the disappointments that you have experienced in life, without being compassionate and kind to yourself, it's very difficult to fully embrace it and to fully acknowledge it, right? So be courageous and be kind to yourself. And if you would like to receive the questions that I've been asking in this video via email, then feel free to email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write full moon questions in the subject line, and my assistant will email all of them to you so you can really sit with these questions and be with them for the next 2 weeks, okay? Now, last but not least, of course, I want to also mention that if you have an ascendant, career point, or personal planets in 0 to 4 degrees of Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, or Aquarius, you will feel the effects of this full moon more strongly. But even if you don't have points or planets in those signs or degrees, I want to recommend take a look at your birth chart and see where 2.5 degrees of Taurus and Scorpio falls in your birth chart. Look at those house placements and really see like these areas of your life are going to be more fully affected by this full moon. And these areas of your life, you're going to want to find a way to integrate and connect with these two areas for the next 2 weeks after the full moon. Okay, now feel free to watch my video on how to read your birth chart if you haven't seen that yet, because that will help you in really understanding how to look that up in your birth chart. In regards to all my videos and also my weekly forecasts, you get an idea of how to use that with your birth chart. Feel free to watch that video. You can email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just put recording in the subject line, and then we'll email you the recording with some handouts. And I'll also please watch this video before you join my monthly live forecasting forum, because that video will really help you before you join us to really understand how to look at your own birth chart, because the monthly live forecasting forum is very much about you aligning yourself with the upcoming energies for the next month. And it's essential that you have your own birth chart in front of you when you join the webinar, and also be able to look up what we talk about in your birth chart. And that video will really help you with that, so you can join us for that monthly live casting forum. And speaking of, the last announcement that I'm making in this video for joining us for the next one coming up, which will be on Friday, April 22nd at 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, which is New York time in the US, or 4 p.m. Pacific time, which is the West Coast time in the US. And this is a 90-minute webinar that is going to be live on the day of the Scorpio full moon, right? And so I just want to invite you to really get aligned, get in alignment with the upcoming energies for the next month. And you can sign up for the webinar either live, or you can also register and receive an MP4 within the 24 hours of the live event. Either way, the fee is $24. And either way, I need you to register on my website at astrologercoach.com, and just go below the video that is about Saturn and Sagittarius. There is a link to registering for the monthly forecasting forum, and just click on that link, and then you will be guided to the page where you can register. And there is a payment button and an online form. So please, please, please make your payment and fill out the online form. And then that way I can answer all your questions during the webinar. And I have all your information, so I can send you an email so that you can join the webinar, either live or get the recording. Okay? Now, you can also receive a newsletter or a weekly forecast via email. I send out weekly forecasts once a week. Or you can also just read them on my website if you like. And then the newsletter goes out twice a month. So whichever way feels better for you, if you want either one of them or both of them, just email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write weekly forecasts in the subject line, or newsletter, or both if you want to receive both. And my assistant will add you to the appropriate mailing list. All right? So have a fantastic full moon. If you have any general questions about this full moon, you can email me at Sonja@astrologercoach.com. That's SONJA@astrologercoach.com. And if you have any personal questions that require of me to pull up your birth chart, I will ask you to book a reading with me just to honor my time and to make sure that you get your questions answered fully and completely. You can go to my website at astrologercoach.com and book a reading there. There's a link that guides you to my services page. And there are many, many readings that I offer on that page. So depending on what your resources are and how much time you want to spend with me, there's all the different types of readings available. All right. So have a fantastic full moon, and I will be back in a couple of weeks with the next video. This is Astrologer Coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.